Hello again and welcome to ISAC Software Academy Linux course. This lesson is about getting help in Linux. This help is for both the command line and the graphical interface. And as we did with our previous lesson, we will begin with theory and show the practical side shortly after. Many people believe that Linux is exceptionally difficult and it's hard to find help with it. This is somewhat true, as it is more complicated than some other systems. However, getting help is relatively easy. It's simply a matter of knowing where to look for it. The most difficult part of the system is commonly believed to be the command line. This is where we will start today. The command line can actually be used to get help on a great many things. The man and info commands are used fairly similarly and have the same job. They are designed to provide you information on a tool, command, or feature of Linux or as a part of Linux. Man is the oldest of these two. It is short for manual. It is used in the format of man space command, and it will list help for any command that it has in its man pages, which are entries into the manual pages, obviously. Info is designed to replace man and is obviously newer. It is effectively the same method of use, however it is different in layout. This layout can confuse those who are a lot more comfortable with the man pages layout. However, the same information is provided, sometimes even a little bit more. Info is also used in the same manner on the command line by typing info space and a command or tool or feature. The -h and --help features of the command line are specific to a tool or command, and as such vary depending upon the tool or command that it's used on. In some instances, simply not providing any command line arguments will generate the help message. However, most tools will require you to list either a -h parameter or a --help parameter. X Windows has various areas in which you can get help. Help for X Windows itself is obviously available. However, there is also help for particular applications. This help does vary as it is dependent upon the application. However, most applications will provide at least an introductory help system. And finally, there is online help, which varies between whether you're looking at X Windows help, Linux in general, application help, or perhaps something else such as hardware and compatibility issues. That online help can be in the form of forums, documents, how-tos, or even Internet Relay Chat or IRC, and you can also get paid for online help or even phone support depending upon the system or service that you have chosen. Windowing help can be found in Ubuntu via one of two methods. The first is by left-clicking anywhere on the desktop to make sure that the desktop is the focus, and then raising the mouse to the top left hand corner of the screen where the menu is located, at which point a help menu option will be available. Clicking on that will allow you to click on Ubuntu Help, at which point you will get the Ubuntu desktop guide for assistance in navigation and general problems. The second method is by going to the left hand bar referred to as the dash and clicking on the highest icon, which looks like and in fact is the Ubuntu icon, at which point it will open a large transparent window, and one of the icons will be a blue and white question mark, and that is titled Help. This opens up the Ubuntu desktop guide as well. In other graphical interfaces, you may find that rather than a question mark, it may in fact be a flotation device, such as those used on ships to throw out to passengers who have gone overboard. This is more common in the likes of GNOME, but can be found also in some applications. The Ubuntu desktop guide is also available for search by typing in the address bar. Individual applications also have help available. Most of them have a help menu option, much as you would see in Ubuntu's desktop. You can generally access this help via the F1 key. However, there are notable exceptions to this, such as Firefox. The likes of LibreOffice, however, this does work on. Generally, and this is not always the case, this help is also searchable. However, it is dependent upon the application itself. The final part of the theory today is the online help, which I did briefly cover at the beginning. Obviously, there are forums available. The downside to using forums is that you may not actually be able to trust the information being provided, as there is no way to be sure that the person providing the information actually knows what they're talking about. That said, there is a great deal of very helpful individuals on a myriad of forums, especially the likes of the Ubuntu forums. However, there is also other forums specific to Linux in general, or individual distributions. Obviously, being that we are focusing on Ubuntu, we would be focusing on the Ubuntu forums in this particular lesson. One of the oldest traditions in Linux is to use how-tos to solve your configuration issues, or to learn how to do something that you are unfamiliar with. These generally provide you with step-by-step introductions and instructions to all topics that are required. They generally cover some more common variations depending upon the type of how-to, and occasionally will be updated to allow for changes from version to version. The LDP, or Linux Documentation Project, was started way back in 1992 as an FTP site, and eventually went on the World Wide Web and serves hundreds of Linux how-to documents. It is in effect a large how-to repository. In 2008, a wiki was started to allow better interaction between authors and users. Moving to this wiki format is a way to move from a more static serving of documents to a more interactive and updatable system. I will now show you the practical side of where you can find all of the help information, and we'll start with the console help as mentioned previously. The man pages can be accessed, as I stated, by typing in man, a space, and a command, for example the cd command, and hitting enter. As you can see, there is no manual entry for cd, so as you can see, not all commands are listed in the man pages or the info pages for that matter. However, the likes of the ls command is listed, and as such you can see how this is laid out with a name, synopsis, description, and further down you'll find all of the available commands to use with it, the parameters. And as you can see, there is a ---- help option available, as we mentioned in the theory. There is also an author section, a see also, which is more common than an author section. Not all sections are always there in these man pages, but you can also see that this is part of the GNU core utils, which is listed down the bottom here, and as such this gives you all of the information you could possibly want about ls, and if it's not here, there are obviously other ways to get it, such as the info core utils ls invocation command. The info command can be used in much the same fashion by typing in info and then ls and hitting enter. As you can see, it's a completely different layout, and as you can see it has the information here, considerably more English oriented than the man pages, and quite a bit shorter as well. However, has the ability to go to other pages while in a page by highlighting it with the cursor here and simply hitting enter. Before we do that, however, I would like to highlight this right here where there is a backslash at the end of the partial word directory, and then the rest of it down the bottom. This is to indicate that the word was not completely finished and continues on the next line. This is a very common method throughout Linux and should be noted for future reference. In order to go to another area, such as the coreutils.info info page, you would highlight it as I have here using the arrow keys and hit enter, and it has now taken us to the core utils info page, where you can see it has a great deal of information about all of the core utils that are available. Finally, there is the -h command that can be used, which in this instance, because it's ls and actually uses -h for another purpose, cannot be used here, as you can see. However, doing the --help option will give you the help, which you can scroll through by holding down shift and hitting page up to go up and page down to go down, and you should be able to go to the top and then read all of the help that has been generated here. To demonstrate the -h argument. I will be using the ifconfig command, which is a network command for showing the interface configuration, with the -h command. As you can see, it prints out the help page for your viewing so that you can learn quickly how to utilize its options. Moving on to the graphical help, up in the corner here, as I say, you click on the desktop itself with a left click, and as you can see in the right click there is no help option, so left click, drag the mouse up to the top where you will find a help menu option. Clicking on that gives you Ubuntu help as its only option, and when you click on this it brings up the Ubuntu desktop guide, and as such gives you all of the help you could need for using Ubuntu's desktop. However, there is another method for getting to the Ubuntu desktop guide. Up here there is the dash home, and by clicking on this it brings up the dash window, and the help icon is available here. By clicking on this, the exact same thing pops up again. As I stated, the Ubuntu desktop guide is searchable, so as an example, should you need to find networking information, you can type in networking into this search field at the top and hit enter, at which point it will give you a myriad of different options. Scrolling through these, you might need wireless networking information, at which point you can click there and it will give you many more options. Once you find what you need, you can work through it step by step, eventually getting whatever it is that you need up and running, in this case manually setting up networking. The other help that is in the X Windows system is that of applications. I mentioned Firefox earlier. It is a good example. Firefox does not have an F1 option. You can't actually see it at the moment, but I am pressing F1 and it is not giving us help. And if you look up the top here, there is now a help option, and going into Firefox help will actually bring up a web page for Firefox help. The application that does have help is LibreOffice. As you can see, there is a help option here. However, it has a shortcut of F1, which is almost a universal help option. You can click that and have the help pop up, or you can hit F1 and the same help will pop up. Obviously it is searchable, and as an example I can type in font attributes, and by double clicking on it, it provides you with the resetting font attributes subheading, which is the only one that has help available to you. And finally, as you can see in here, ubuntuforums.org has a support community available, an absolute beginners section, general support, specialized support, and so on, and is a great source of information. I hope this has been useful, and thank you for listening, and should you find any other sources of help, it might be worth listing them in the Ubuntu forums so that other people like yourself who are learning it can find that help as well. Do not limit yourself to just what I have discussed here, there are other sources of assistance should you need them, as I've mentioned, such as IRC.